guess I'll kick it off. So first of all, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We are very proud and blessed to have two amazing guests here. We have Joe Branch, Morgan Cato. So quick introductions. I'm Tristan Mitchell, one of the co-founders of Scene. I work at GMR Marketing, and I'm in charge of our client consulting and services practice in the New York office.
I'm Malcolm Ruffin, another co-founder of Scene and head of athlete content strategy at CAA. So with that, I guess we'll do a quick intro of our lovely guests. We've got Joe Branch, who's assistant general manager for the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the number one pick. So shout out to you guys. How you feel? I actually texted you that morning, wishing you luck, and then you guys got the number one pick. So you're welcome.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a surprise. Thanks for having me. Very proud of the work, that you guys are doing. We're doing a lot of due diligence on, draftees, trade opportunities. So it's fun. Tons of learning for me, being new to this side, first draft. I'll be on this side having the first pick. So it's definitely awesome.
Awesome. And we have Morgan Cato, Senior Director of Business Operations for the NBA's League Ops group. It's funny, you're both actually in bubbles right now. Joe's got the background. He's in the Minnesota team bubble. Morgan, you're down at the NBA bubble. Thank you for being here, Morgan.
Of course, my pleasure. I'm glad to be with you guys. It's an honor. There's a lot going on. I know we have a lot to discuss. Essentially, in my role, I cover strategic basketball initiatives and amplifying basketball across the world. So glad to be here for you guys.
All right. And so before we dip a little bit into some of the other questions that we have, so Joe and Morgan, just want to give the folks who are watching a better idea of what specifically you guys do. So Joe, you're assistant GM. What does that mean? And what are some things that you do that people don't expect an assistant GM to do?
Let's see. So, it's like I said, it's a new role for me. I'm closing out on my first year, in Minnesota. So new city, new job, new opportunities. So just, it was a faith step for me. I think as an assistant GM, you're a generalist, right? So the first thing is you want to help our head coach and you want to help Gerson, our president, be successful, right? And you also want to provide a different perspective. So some of the things, that I do every day is different. It could be scouting, whether that be looking at international players, looking at guys in the draft, looking at free agents. I mean, pre-COVID, I was a third of the time with the team, a third of the time looking at other NBA games, and a third of the time at college games scouting. So a ton of travel there. I think, you're looking at free agency. We're going to have free agency. So using the skills that I learned back in brand marketing at Nike to look at innovative ways to present to our free agents, player development, looking at bringing in innovative speakers to continue to inspire our guys, work with our performance team, our sports psychologists on various ways to get peak performance, out of our guys. So you do a ton of different things in the role. Like I said, no day's the same, but I'm thankful, to have various experiences prior to this. And, it's just helped me be more successful in doing the day-to-day operations here. So I'm thankful to be in Minnesota.
All right. And Morgan, on your side, right, you're down in the bubble right now. What does your day-to-day look like? What is a day in the life of Morgan?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Depends on when and where and what time zone we're in. But presently for the bubble, I think my main focus is how we continue to support our teams, our coaches, our players, our officials on completing a successful season. Right, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a social justice revolution. We're in the middle of, a political campaign. There's a lot that's impacting the game of sport, the game of basketball, and we're at the forefront of all of it. The NBA has a chance to essentially be a leader in this space, in the thought space of how we continue to impact change on the court, but also show that our athletes are more than athletes. So in my day-to-day right now, I spend a lot of time with the teams that are here, a lot of time advising and helping and discussing matters with our GMs, with our players, with our coaches out here to just kind of connect the dots on things that are moving. Outside of our bubble, I'm also spending time with the 8 teams that are doing their own bubbles in their markets right now so that they're figuring out how to best engage with their players how to make sure that guys are staying safe, but also how to make sure that the game continues to grow in a financial challenging market as well. So a lot of moving pieces.
That you both are very busy and making me feel like I've got to step up my game. So appreciate you taking out some time. We would love to just take a step back and kind of explain why you two are so important to Tristan and and me personally, but also to the evolution of Scene. So I know, Joe, you're the originator of Scene, whether you embrace it or not. I remember back in 2015, we were trying to catch up for a few weeks, and we were just a couple avenues away from each other in New York, but we would see each other at the NBA Combine in Chicago or Summer League and everywhere except for New York. And we just decided to get together one day, and you suggested we invite Yao, invite Jose, invite a bunch of people. And, little did we know that first meetup with 10, 15 people, we decided we were going to do another one. 30 people came out, 40 people came out, and then Scene was born. And so I'd love to just ask you, why did you feel like it was important to bring together Black and brown professionals and allies and to just have a space for that?
Well, I think it's very important. I think New York is a great place to make that happen. I mean, a lot of us worked in sports. Not a ton of us are in various rooms. It can be lonely in certain places that you're working. So I thought it was just very important to get people together to be able to breathe, unwind, share stories, share perspectives, find mentors. Together, we achieve more. So we wanted to make sure that no one feels isolated or alone in their pursuit to get to the next level, right? So, the Bible says that we all go through tribulation, but, together we can work to make things happen. If I had a hard day, I could call Morgan, I could call various friends. If you or Tristan have a hard day, you can call us to get perspective. So I think just building that collective effort was really important. And I think the second aspect of that, my passion for mentorship and the work that, we've done with You On Game and providing that next generation, the blueprint. Bishop Jake says kids can't be what they don't see, right? So they need to see you. They need to see Tristan. They need to see all the members of Scene from around the country and hopefully globally, as Morgan talked about. So I think that was the initial aspect of the why we all got together, and now you guys are taking it to the next level.
Preaching. Appreciate that. And I really felt that was really important for me, just at that stage of my career, just a couple years out, to have other mentors, and really proud of what we've been able to build since, to almost having 1,000 community members, right? And so thank you for encouraging us. Thank you for motivating us from day one. And Morgan, you were also right there at the very beginning. Few people know you actually recruited me at the NBA. I found the letter when I got into the associate program for you the other day. I sent you a text.
Yes.
And so you were a big part of recruiting and that making sure that the NBA was more diverse. And but you also were really important to us and helped to be an advocate. And why did you, I'm just curious, why you immediately decided to be an ally for us and support us as we started down this journey of kind of growing Scene?
Well, yeah, we are going back a bit. That's 2012, give or take. So yeah. we've been in a few gyms together, Mel. So it's been a good time. But this is my community, hands down. When we think about sport, we think about the people on the courts who are on the field, who are in the arena. It makes sense. Representation matters. We talk about continuing to build and create spaces for our athletes. I mean, who better to do it than the people who know them, the people that they can relate to? It's not to say that we don't need a diverse spectrum. We absolutely need that. But representation matters to really, reach the best business goals. Mm-hmm. To Joe's point around being in those rooms, particularly now in this climate of digital and social media, I'm on plenty of screens where I'm the only person that looks like me. And I don't think I was so conscious of my gender and my skin tone until I got on Zoom. You can't see yourself sitting in a room full of people that don't look like you until you are literally on a screen, and then there are just conversations that you can have. You can bounce ideas off of people. You can build, you can think, you can breathe, So I even remember in our earlier conversations, I'm pretty sure that it was a bit easier for you to just have a free-flowing dialogue with someone that was a bit more relatable to you. So all of that matters to continue growing and amplifying this space. I mean, there's so much that can come from sport. So representation and diversity matters, and that's why I go hard.
Appreciate that. And I think you started to go down this path, on the courts and fields, you see a spectrum, you see diversity. But when you go to that executive, to the actual business of sports and entertainment, like we're all in it, that representation isn't necessarily there. And so, Joe, could you speak to the importance and the value of having Black and brown executives, just whether that be during your time with the Timberwolves, the NBA, Nike, Rock Nation? What is the importance and the value of having that representation?
Yeah, I think there are several words or phrases that come to mind to me. Morgan touched on one thing. Cultural connection is one. Shared experiences is another, and relatability is the third. So, everyone, the various cultures and organizations are very important. When I talk to students now, I mean, it's not just the work that you do, but it's the culture that you're in. When you look to the left or to the right, will you have allies in the building? Are you comfortable? Are you uncomfortable? A lot of times as we move, up the ladder, I remember when I was an intern, for the Chicago Bulls, an intern, for the Rockets, back in the day. But as you move up the ladder, you don't see, as Morgan said, a ton of people that look like you. So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So therefore, we urge, students, youth to learn golf, eat sushi, do everything you need to do not to be locked out of a room and not to be locked out of an experience. So I think that's very important. And with this organization, I'm going to encourage and push you to address it, right? Address culture and address that it won't be, everyone is not out for your success. I think, you learn people have different goals and agendas. They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to take care of their kids. So, so obviously we're not the only ones that want to continue, to achieve. But I think that cultural connection is very, very important. So, we should have it.
For sure. I appreciate that. And Morgan, you mentioned diversity. I think one thing that Tristan and I talk a lot about is that it doesn't just stop at diversity, right? Like that inclusion piece of feeling like you belong is so critical. That equity of feeling like you're just as capable of succeeding and excelling is so important. Can you talk about, the state of DEI and kind of why the equity piece is so important?
Sure. I mean, when we look at the current state of our country, there's a disproportionate, ratio of equity when it comes to Black and brown voice, impact, and contributions to how this country runs, hands down. And all of that trickles down into the workforce. It trickles down into corporations. It trickles down into ownership. It trickles down into representation. I think the brown community is just starting to speak a bit more out loud about equity and demanding and are deserving of equity. So when we talk about representation in rooms like this, where we are in, multi-billion-dollar industries for, brands that represent us, where we essentially are the product to a degree. And I never like to look at people in that fashion, but, there's a degree of excellence and expertise that we can contribute to making these businesses grow. It makes sense for people like us to be part of those discussions. Diversity and inclusion is key in that area. It's one thing to, check a box and say, fine, you have, at least the visibility of a diverse organization, but inclusion really means that you're tapping into thought process, you're tapping into ideation, you're tapping into innovation that'll just basically amplify what you have. I think we need to get to a point where we're not necessarily just focusing on gender and race. We need to focus on who's really providing the best insight for us to make sound business solutions and amplify our gains. If you only are in rooms with people that look like you, there's a void. And I'll also say that for the Black and Brown community. As we talk about mentorship, young Black and Brown people need to, as Joe mentioned, get comfortable in interacting in other settings. You have to be willing to take that step to learn from other people that don't look like you. That's how you continue to expand your thought process. There are other points I really focus on. It's called opportunity and access, right? If you think about Black and Brown people and where there may be some challenges, are they given opportunities to succeed, to be part of that conversation? Are they given access to excel, right? And sometimes that's not as comfortable for us. We don't always have people inviting us into conversations. A lot of the time we have to insert, so those are two different pieces that seen in other similar organizations, and essentially this fellowship can continue to provide. So diversity and inclusion is one thing to have a seat at the table. It's another thing to have impact.
Man,
Definitely.
It's speaking to my heart. Tristan, you want to take the next section?
Yeah, definitely. And so this is shifting the conversation a bit, still in the same space, but this summer was really, really an impactful summer, right? I think that overall, from George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Floyd, there was really a monumental shift in the social consciousness of America overall, right? And you guys working at the NBA were really at the forefront. So first, going back into the bubble, the conversation about restarting the entire season, it'll be really interested to hear from the both of you. What do you think some of the long-term effects will be of some of this social advocacy that we really saw as players had to make the conscious decision to leave their families, leave their communities, and come back into the bubble? Morgan, you're there, you're living, breathing that every day. Joe, now you have a lot of your guys isolated in your all team bubble. So what do you think some of the long-term effects of this almost generational shift is in terms of players and individuals want to be much more socially active and stand up for some of these causes they believe in?
Joe, you want to go first?
Go for it.
I think the biggest takeaway from this experience for our guys is understanding the degree of patience, perseverance, and pain through this, but also the importance of community and collaboration to continue pushing these agendas. The trauma that we're living day after day, and I will call it trauma. No one should have to see a life being snuffed out intentionally or accidentally. Like those are things that should be socialized. That's hard for people to discuss. When we talk about our athletes, they live their lives on a stage. To then take that, amplify social justice, and ask people to get up and talk about it day after day, it's a lot. So that's why I also talk about that degree of pain. I think our guys are also realizing that they can't do this on their own. So as hard as these bubbles are, if you were spread out across the nation, in your own towns and your own communities, it'll be difficult to have that connectivity, but there's strength in numbers. So when these guys came down here and got together, that there were challenging conversations that need to be had, but that's the first step to making progress and learning that there needs to be a bit more consistency and perseverance in this. So I think if you have any major takeaways, there's a sense of community that's built after literally being forced in a setting together where you've neutralized anxiety, you've neutralized external forces. Like, it's just us, we got, and you have to figure out how to move forward from there.
There's a guy that's with us right now who's been in the NBA for over 30 years, Ed Tapscott. And, he says, don't waste a crisis, right? So let's not waste this crisis. And that's what it's been. So again, I think it speaks to being uncomfortable and what we want to do. We have to push, the agenda, right? Morgan said invite versus insert. So we have to reach out and ask for, minority-owned businesses or vendors to be utilized, right? We have to ensure reaching out to agents, reaching out to our guys that they all register to vote, that they all vote. We have to ensure, we have to make them aware who their local officials are, not only in Minneapolis, their playing market, but they might live in other markets like Florida or California and their hometown markets. So we're going above and beyond. We have to make sure that guys are, car registrations are taken care of, licenses are, haven't expired, just all the different things that we need to do. We have to take all the necessary steps. Then I think it speaks to, as an organization, the pipeline development, right? Not necessarily just internships, but, we started a speaker series with several high schools in North and South Minneapolis here that, we just talk about our careers, right? So kids of color can see what we do, whether that's on the business side or the basketball side. Again, because if they don't see it, they won't be inspired to be it. So therefore, it starts with, information, then internships, then what are we looking at, full-time jobs, right? So I think that's, some of the long-lasting, sustainable items that we need to see, in the various markets. But I'd love to say that, I think, man, we can't grow weary in doing good that we're doing collectively in our 30 markets. I think we're all coming together, right? I mean, I think we're on the cusp of the NBA Finals to start tonight, and it's great, right? We're 7 games potentially away from, finishing this thing. A lot of work and effort, went into this. There's the word sacrifice. Morgan has sacrificed time, been away from family, players, coaches, Pat Riley, Rob Pelinka, LeBron James, everyone's down there, just collectively trying to finish the season and using their voices to make our world a better place. So, kudos to everyone. And I think we're all locked in. The NBA family has really come together to make this, some sustainable change.
And just one follow-up question before we close out to both of you guys. One quick word of advice, one quick piece of advice to some of the younger Black and brown professionals out there as they continue to try to strive and be successful in their careers. What is a piece of advice that you would give them as they continue moving forward in their individual roles?
Go ahead, Morgan.
Oh, okay. Use your voice. Be heard and be seen. Literally. You can't be afraid to offer an opinion, ask a question. You're going to get it wrong sometimes, and that's okay. Like you have to get a few bumps and bruises to get through the gauntlet. So if you're not sharing your perspective, number one, you can't contribute. And then number two, people aren't going to realize what you have to offer. Number three, you won't learn. So use your voice and be seen.
If I had a couple for you, I'd say lean on your brother or sister, because you will have those days that are trying, but no life is perfect, right? And then my second piece is it speaks to just the overall ethos of who I am and who I think we all collectively are on this Zoom is mentoring, right? So mentor at least one, middle school, high school, college student, right? It's bigger than us, right? We have to reach back, give back, and develop that next generation, because the change is not going to happen 2020, 2021, 2022. We're going to have to reach back. Hopefully by 2025, we'll see some sustainable change. So that would be my advice.
Man, I promise we didn't seed. I've heard Morgan say be heard and be seen, and Joe talk about giving back, one of our pillars. We didn't plant that. It was just organic. We appreciate you two more than you know. Hopefully we can continue to express to you how much we appreciate and value. We know this was not easy. You both have a lot going on, but thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your perspective and sharing your wisdom with our community. So thank you.
No, one more point on that for the folks who are going to hear this later. Note that it was 7:30 a.m. Joe's time and 8:30 a.m. Morgan's time. But I think it's important for any one of you that, early bird gets the worm.
Right.
It's not too early to get this grind in. So, use your hours in the day. Realize what it takes to get this work done.
Right. Well said, Morgan.
I got you.
Appreciate you guys. Proud of you
Thank
guys.
you both.
You guys. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days.